We were expecting it to be kind of wet, perhaps a little cold. We were really lucky in that we had 3 weeks of kind of sunshine, just a few showers here and there. And perhaps the last week of wet weather is our fault. We were kind of joking that our raincoats can stay in our backpacks at the bottom.
Yeah, so the only thing I was surprised by was the cold. I kind of packed what I thought would be kind of cold gear, but just the wind and the cold factor. It was apart from that, it was really good, and I really enjoyed the scenery and the kind of deeper connection with the locals. And another surprise was the lack of English, which I kind of it was an interesting experience because it kind of made me really kind of think and let go and maybe say yes to random foods and things, which in New Zealand, yes, really only English is spoken. And although sort of learnt French at school a long, long time ago, and it really made me appreciate the multi-language thing here. And in the Norte, it was sort of like 3 or 4 dialects of Spanish, and there just wouldn't be an English translation written. I tried to learn Spanish before I came, but
They speak so quickly, and
sorry.
And your brain, you might catch 1 or 2 words, but by the time you've translated it, it's like, and then there's a bunch of things that you don't understand, and you just say yes, and then it's a surprise.
Yeah. So the things that I didn't expect, they were all in all a good surprise. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
There were probably several people. There's one tall guy from Belgium, and he'd walked from Paris. And he, we'd kind of often come across him early in the morning. He'd kind of left the albergue early, and he'd be sitting in the sun, just kind of chilling. And I'd kind of meet up with him, and I'd complain about sort of having to wait for Jenny. And he'd remind me, the Camino's not a race.
Yes, yeah. Yes, there was several people on the Norte that you kind of loosely connected to, and you didn't expect that you'd see them again. For me, there was an older German guy that we met in a hostel, and we were encouraged all to share stories, and he'd had some lovely stories, and he left the next morning. I thought, he had some great stories. I probably won't ever see him again. And then saw him at another albergue, and we shared more stories. So it was, things that you don't expect end up happening. It's,
I guess,
again and again.
Yeah, I guess one of the perhaps problems with being a couple walking the Camino, particularly if you're a introverted couple, is, making those connections with others. We didn't book any accommodation kind of for most of the Norte. There was perhaps a group that we would see of 10, kind of 15 people that was sort of...
So the hostels would be kind of like up to half full, sort of. Yeah, so it was very...
There's nothing to worry about.
No, there was one hostel that was full when we went to see if we could stay there, but that was it. Everything else was kind of pretty good. That's a hard one, because there were, each time I stayed in a good one, I thought, no, this is the best. But I think, again, Carburedondo, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but it was not sure the type of hostel. I think it was sort of like a...
The Donativo?
Yeah, it had a group of women running it. And yes, just the way they encouraged us to kind of share things, and we all went for a walk to watch the sunset over the ocean, and their cat and dog came along, sort of things like that. And often in the private albergues, there would be some wonderful eccentricity that the municipal ones were really good and cheap, but I enjoyed the private ones just to get to know the people a bit more.
That's a good question.
Yeah. I think it's mainly the people are memorable, and often if they are personable off in the building, and you're kind of the sleeping arrangements and everything work as well. And yes, there's some albergues, the facilities were fine, but the person at the front was very kind of not interested in interacting at all, or rude, and we didn't enjoy those, obviously, even though the facilities were okay.
Jenny, do you want to talk about your experience in Camillus?
Oh, yes. Okay. The day after I started the Norte, I was sick with a sore throat, and it kind of got worse and worse, and just became a chest infection. So I ended up stopping in Camillus, and Garry carried on, and I really, really enjoyed that. I felt it was good to sort of see the new groups that would come each night. I was there for 3 nights, so each group was very different. And also we'd been travelling as a couple, and I'd kind of relied on Garry because I was getting sick, and I was just leaving decisions to him.
Always a good thing.
Being on my own, and just I felt like I was sort of connecting more with not only the people but the place and the culture, and especially staying in one place, you could sort of orient yourself, and the reasons behind doing the Camino became clearer. And yes, I think just that pause was very significant for me.
I think at one stage you described it to me as if there were kind of waves that were kind of washing over the hostel.
Yeah, each group of people were it was like a tidal thing. Yeah. Yes, it was kind of, and that must be how it feels for the albergue people. It would be relentless all the time, but yeah, for a few days it was really, really interesting to there were a few, but one thing I've really, really loved at the time was the the Asturian or the Cantabrian stews with the beans and the meat and the vegetables. It was just really hit the spot. Sounds a bit boring, a stew, but it was absolutely fantastic.
I think it's the fuel you need also.
Yes, yeah, it kind of felt like just the... Yes. Yeah, I wanted to have stew 3 times a day. What about you, Garry?
There was one particularly kind of... there's always the pastries.
Yes.
But there was one kind of Galatian scallop that came in a particularly delicious sort of sauce that was memorable. And menu del dia was always great. When I was walking by myself, I stopped at this kind of beautiful kind of seaside hotel, ordered the menu, and was kind of shocked when this kind of whole bottle of wine was plonked on my table, and I kind of looked at it and thought, but it makes for happy pilgrims in the afternoon.
That's right.
And you see those signs on the road, warning drivers, caution, there's pilgrims on the road, caution, particularly if they're drunken pilgrims staggering.
The kind of Camillist around San Vicente were just, they kind of landscape and also there was a wonderful albergue at San Vicente, the old castles and things. Just the scenery was amazing, and the people there were just very friendly and hospitable, I guess. So.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, I guess. We only started in Bilbao, so we skipped that first week. Jenny was a somewhat reluctant pilgrim, and she mentioned that she wanted to go and see the Guggenheim in Bilbao. So that was the bait, the enticement for her.
Disagree.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, that was the raincoat initially.
We'd bought expensive head torches that never used, just used our phones, if at all, and I was discarding extra pairs of clothing along the way. I just I kept everything warm that I'd brought, but all these thinking, oh, I might not like that, I might want to wear this, too heavy.
And even like the sleeping bags, we bought sleeping bags with us.
That's right.
And we used them in the first sort of few albergues that we stayed in, but then we became more comfortable with just using the kind of sleeping bag liners and the blankets that were provided. So I think, if we came and did another one, perhaps we'd leave the sleeping bags at home.
That would have taken a kilo off, but yes, or I suppose.
The
But just
blankets
use the
were
blankets. Fine. The sleeping bags were just for.
I don't have anything that I didn't bring.
You can always buy it.
Yeah.
I'm wearing Decathlon, and I've got a puffer jacket as well that I also bought. But yes, I'd had just a raincoat and merino layers, but they weren't enough. And I guess I was envying ponchos with this last week of constant rain. I thought even people would have their raincoats, but they'd still have, and backpack covers, they'd still have a poncho over the top, and they were a lot drier than we were, and but it's just wet in the end.
I don't think we can make a fair comparison because we kind of really enjoyed the Norte and the length of it, and particularly the early parts where there was a small number of pilgrims, and when the Norte joined the Francaise, and it really was a bit of a culture shock when everybody just streams out of their accommodation in the morning, and you see piles of backpacks and suitcases ready to be shipped to the next albergue. And
On the Norte, there was not.
No,
kind of
nothing at all like that ever until Azura. I don't know, Azura?
Yes.
Azura, yeah.
And we only did the last kind of 120k of the Portuguese.
And the
so
Portuguese also, that coincided with the May Day holiday.
So it was kind of very busy.
Yeah. It felt much more established, the Portuguese, I guess. But also we were surprised at the lack of food in between walks or a couple of days, or just not being prepared with going to the supermarket. And
The supermarket's being closed on a Sunday.
Yes.
It's like unheard of in New Zealand. And
Okay. Yeah, it's normal.
Yeah. Yes, if you decide, it's much more. In New Zealand, we've only got 2 types of supermarket you can go to, really, and so they're competing against each other.
Yeah.
And they're just always open. But
I think it is really just a matter of going. Like when we were planning, I kind of initially bought the Frances guide from your website. It's sitting at home, unused. We started kind of reading sort of some of the posts on the forum, and thought, perhaps the Frances would just be too kind of busy. And the Norte, kind of just the coastal aspect, sort of appealed to us. We felt that perhaps some of the kind of inland Caminos might be too challenging as a first Camino. I think the Norte was a great choice for us. We did a reasonable amount of preparation. So, I've been walking perhaps 14 kilometres a day for probably a year beforehand. And once we were committed to doing the Camino, Jenny kind of joined in and tried to do the same. So, physically it wasn't a challenge. We were kind of...
For you, maybe.
Yeah.
It just seems like you had trained a little bit less.
Yes, well, he was just into training anyway, and but I suppose with the Norte, initially when I looked at it, I was sort of a bit apprehensive because looking at it on the map, you sort of see it and you think, it's just like walking along the road between towns. Yeah. And I thought, I don't know whether that will suit, but it isn't. I can assure people the tracks, there is a bit of road walking, but that's the same with all the Camino. I think that's the same with a lot of the Caminos.
And there are complaints that there's an awful lot of kind of tarmac on the Norte. But it was actually quite enjoyable. Yes, it's a bit harder on your feet and legs, but the actual roads, it's like, it seems that Spanish people don't drive on their roads. They have wonderful infrastructure, but no traffic, and you're walking through, all these historic kind of villages. Like, we'd meet pilgrims that would say, "You're from New Zealand. It's so beautiful. Why would you come and walk in Spain in the rain?"